So welcome to another episode of Simon Says. Lyra, we just want to continue what we started off last week, right? Right after the Sabah election and all the different things, but we are seeing more reaction from the government even the past 1 week.
Yep.
And one of the things I just put here, a few. We're 3 years, more than 3 years into Madani, and of course, general election is round the corner. I can't remember, is it the last episode, the last episode, somebody was just saying that, if they do well, they may even want to call general election early.
Yeah, the episode when we had David on,
we
on
kind
board.
Did we say it on the episode or is like off?
I think we kind of like sort of alluded to it a little bit.
A little bit, right? And so now that seems off the table. So one of the things just we want to kind of talk about is in a way, you can see the federal government is trying to pivot a little bit. They are trying to have a different posture, if you like. And is it because, of course, obviously they have been kind of rejected quite strongly in Sabah elections. But do you think they are also kind of like having one eye at the next general election?
I should think so. I mean, naturally, that will be what politicians are trying to do. I mean, obviously, it's like a midterm election, if you will. So I felt like they were like just kind of like looking at how Sabahans would actually react to this whole thing, and if they could actually even garner support outside from the crowd that they were trying to so hard to wow, like the Malay majorities, but they have not been very, very successful over the past 3 years, especially here in Semenanjung. So I felt like it's kind of like a bit of a wake-up call for them, but it's also a bit like, I guess it's like, if you play sports, you kind of have like just keep pivoting until you find the right footing.
Remember right at the beginnings of the Madani administration, and we talk about this many, many times, that look, the Prime Minister is trying to get support from the Malay, but they kept rejecting him, right? So then, of course, later on with the Gaza, with the Palestine, we saw him doing that even more, but it doesn't seem to translate into voting support, right? And I think the Sabah election is one of the clearest examples. I like how you put it as midterm, because we seldom have this kind of experience in the past where all the elections were
Almost concurrent.
And then you kind of have to hold your emotion for 5 years and then, but this kind of outlet is actually good and for people, and of course also good for the Madani point of view, because now all of a sudden you have an opportunity to change. And those in the government, we are very realistic, right? It's okay to change your mind, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Actually, I felt like it's also kind of like a midterm sort of review in terms of like, hey, does ethnicity still matter a lot? Like in terms of election, like, is it still like, can you still continue to hold on to like race card when it comes to election? I felt like it's a bit of a like test water sort of situation, even for Sabah. I mean, yes, obviously there's a lot of local parties that are coming out, but I felt like it's also a bit like we're pivoting away from like overly like playing too much of a racial card. That's what I kind of like felt.
Yeah, definitely. It's of course from the Pakatan Harapan point of view, they lost a lot of urban Chinese vote, and of course not technically like lost because a lot of them just didn't show up. But that kind of the assumption that the urban people will continue to support you. I remember the last general election, you have some hotly contested seats like Sungai Buloh, where KJ came and lost, and people were kind of like, would the urban Chinese actually support KJ? And end out the support was not even significant enough.
No.
So, there's the saying that, when it comes to general election, because of our historical hope defer that there's no change in federal government, the urban people, especially the non-Malay, are more willing to kind of gamble. But the Sabah narrative kind of challenged that a little bit, that you cannot presume that these people will be your supporter forever. And that's one of the things I think PMX especially has to face up with, is that he has not treated his base well. And people feel like, you're going after the business, you are using the inland revenue, you're using the company's commission of Malaysia, using all the levels of government to actually oppress business. I mean, from the business community, I get that kind of feeling, and we said it a few times, right? People every now and then will say Najib is better. I mean, of course, it's so ridiculous, right? How can the biggest kleptocrat in the history of the world be better? But that shows how dissatisfied his base is with him.
I think when you are kind of like in a cycle of hope defer for too long, you kind of become delusional. I felt that's like a general sense. So therefore, I think more than ever, the PMX has to be like very, very decisive in terms of what he wants to do. I mean, you should take kind of like look at how the Reform Party is doing in the UK. I mean, the polls are doing extremely well. It's because they really like double down in terms of the local issues and like saying no to immigration issues and things like that. I mean, you kind of have to like find out what exactly is the thing that is like very, very dear to the people's heart here.
So what do you make of all the just past week, right? A lot of things has been done, right? I mean, first and foremost, of course, all of a sudden he say, talking about e-invoicing. I mean, e-invoicing is a big topic in the business community, okay? And so 1st of January, which is like 3 weeks from now, those those more than 500,000 supposed to implement e-invoicing, and all of a sudden that threshold has been changed to 1 million. And you will think that a lot of people will be celebrating. Yeah, some people are celebrating, but a lot of people are also like kind of like scolding the government. It's like 3 weeks. Some of the people already migrated the whole system. Should they continue? And some of the advice will be, well, it's voluntary, you should continue. But I was just telling, actually some of the clients that I was consulting, they are also in that threshold. But I was just telling them, look, if you're not legally compelled, then why should you do it unless you really want to do it? So on the other hand, you can see that like Badani PMS is trying to maybe deal with some of the business concern, but still you get scolded. Then of course you see a lot of like more human rights related issue, right? Remember the police shooting in Malacca, and just yesterday one lady was not allowed to go into police station because apparently her pants is just above the knee.
Yeah, but like DAP minister, I mean Gobind Singh, he also kind of like came out and say that he urged the police stations not to like refuse the complainants just because of their dress code. I felt like it's a bit...
Is it enough?
Yeah, you're kind of like going into a very dangerous territory in the sense that, I mean, if we allowed this to happen, then what more? It's like your privacy is going to be like intruded more and more.
Apparently there is a guideline. I don't know which government. So the police are arguing, look, we're just following guideline.
But actually, it kind of like reminded us of the time when we went to was it the JPN, and technically you do have like a certain dress code that you have to be pretty presentable. Also, you can't be like wearing a knee, like up to knee sort of shorts, men and women alike. So I guess there are certain rules and regulations that you do need to adhere to, but it has to be like made known to everyone, I suppose.
Yeah, and so Gobind, of course, Gobind Singh has been talking about this. He has been very vocal about Albert Tay, how MSCC was like, maybe too excessive. Then of course Ram Kapal, the brother, also was talking. So looks like the Singh brothers are kind of on the offensive, because I don't know. I mean, do you think it's fair to say that the rest of the DAP people, maybe the Chinese gang, except for LGE, doesn't really have the guts to come out and tell off PMS?
Yeah, I think so.
But I think there is a bit of telling off now, because I think Anthony Locke was saying 6 months for them to see, and even some of the people are saying, talking about the possibility of DAP. I mean, bear in mind that DAP has 40 member of parliament. If they withdraw support from Madani, it is the end of the government. So of course nobody wants to see that, because whoever brings down the government, I don't think they can survive the next election. People are kind of a bit... I mean, even if you can justify it, do you think the voters would punish whoever brings down any government now?
I suppose they might though.
But of course, they might not also. I mean, very hard to gauge, right? But looking at whoever caused Sheraton and all those, they don't end very well. And so you get a bit of people even saying like, DAP can leave cabinet, they can still support, a bit like those budget and supply arrangement those days, with Sabri, with Muhyiddin, they're kind of like a little bit like minority government those days. So yeah, but what do you make of all these things? Did you think and of course some of the things it looks like the Malacca shooting case, you saw the Prime Minister telling the IGP, you better investigate and no cover up, making this kind of public statement. So, which is, I mean, I will give him credit because I don't think he has done this. He has not challenged the deep state. But let's talk about the police cannot make police report incident. Just use that as a case study, okay? So we were just talking about it, and you felt like there's a bit of self-righteousness there, and if you do that, maybe you appeal to a certain group of voters.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of have to study the demographic. I mean, every generation has their own like things that appeal to them. So I mean, if they are like appealing to, I would say maybe Gen Z, maybe I mean that sort of action might be a bit appealing. I mean, not saying that. I mean, I'm not saying at all that it is a great sort of action in the sense that, hey, I mean, we must be highly regulated. We have to be. I mean, even just the fact about like controlling the social media use for the teenagers.
It's kind of all linked, right? It's like you want like people almost like they want to be told what to do.
Yeah, I mean, even like Australia, they have.
And they just started the social media. I mean, Australia. I mean, a lot of people will find it very surprising, but you know what is their nickname, right? They are called the nanny state.
Exactly. So I felt like, but I guess with lack of societal transform, there is a lot of appeal, I suppose, that you are in a way, quote unquote, like fathered by the government, but it may not necessarily be a great thing at all because it's like you begin to lose your mind in terms of like your critical thinking.
Yep.
So the moment you lose critical thinking, it's almost like I felt like a large portion of your own pursuit to happidness is like being taken away. So I felt like that should be something that people do seriously need to think about, because otherwise, if you don't like generally practice critical thinking in a lot of these areas, and you'll just find that, I mean, some of these things may be appealing because like it's a very Marxist sort of thing to do in terms of like just, hey, you must do A, B, C. I think people sometimes do like to be told in terms of what to do, but you still have to think through. I mean, it's like you cannot be like everything you have to listen to the government. I mean, we're like trying to move away from big government spending to a bit more leaner sort of government expenditure so that everyone gets the opportunity to thrive. So I felt like people need to like begin to think about that sort of like alternative.
Yeah, and also your reactions should be able to translate into some kind of pressure on the government. So I mean, going back to the police report incident again, and of course, Gorbin was one of the highest profile people to kind of come out quite strongly against the police. And I think today Fahmi came out and said they have a cabinet meeting and they will issue guidelines. So it seems like I think DAP is applying the pressure, using the 40-seat leverage. I don't know. I mean, even I think PMS was talking about reshuffling of cabinet, right? And for the longest time, I have not heard this expression. He said, I need to consult with the partners in Pakatan Harapan. So the last time we hear this kind of tone was really when Mahathir was Prime Minister. Remember the first 6 months after the first change of federal government, and every time he was giving his update, right? Remember he was giving daily update for almost a few months, and every time people asking something, he would say, oh, we need to consult. So I'm kind of pleased to see that because I don't know what DAP do in the background, but I mean, I think the good thing is they have not kind of mencuci PMS face, because if you do that, I think there will be all-out war already. So, but they must have. Do you think they have expressed quite strongly, maybe in terms of concern.
I do think so.
And at least, I mean, we have seen like Anwar is capable of change. So it's not beyond him. I mean, we look at we look at the Gaza Palestine posture with the American trade deal. So he did change, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think probably he was even surprised by the overwhelming support from, I mean, all around the community.
And now, I don't know, I haven't seen a lot of Gaza posts from him since. I don't know, is it a coincidence, or maybe there's really nothing, and maybe Hamas and Israel are really not really fighting at the moment because of the peace deal that was achieved.
Yep.
So, but really, I mean, I subscribe to his ads. It used to be every day he has something on Gaza. I haven't seen that for a while.
Yeah, it is actually a very, very good thing.
So he is capable of change, and so do you think? I mean, do you think if they continue to have more change, more reform, like really meeting the needs of the people? Of course, economy is another big thing, and at the end of the day, people need to be able to provide for their family and things like that. So you don't want you want things that translate into meaningful reform for ordinary people. And if they continue to do that, maybe the posture will really help them.
I think so. I mean, I don't think people are like super punitive. As in like they are, I would say, I mean, if there are genuine reforms that come through, I think people are actually generally more forgiving.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so interesting how one state election, and of course, people try to, it kind of remind me of, every time, when you go to court for cases, right? Then you can go to federal court, which is the highest case. And sometimes you get very similar kind of cases coming to the highest court, but the decision could be very different. So how the judges go around this will be, they use the word we distinguish. The sets of facts are different. So a lot of political pundits I've been seeing, they try to distinguish. I mean, some of those people, I think they are just in la la land and not facing out reality, and try to say, Sabah voters are different. You shouldn't apply this to the national scene. But you can see, obviously, DAP and even PMX to a certain extent are not buying that because they are very, very concerned based on their behavior. So I think it is a good thing. But I think this is maybe now a good time for us to talk about again, we kind of go back to the police report example, right? Like all those police chiefs, they can say we are enforcing the guideline, but there's a lot of common sense also. If people really in need, I think that time it's 5-6 o'clock. It's a rush hour. You want somebody to go back and change and come back. It's an accident report. That kind of cases. But do you feel like, okay, a few points here. First is like, do you feel like this is a manifestation of, like, people used to describe all this little Napoleon. I mean, more in terms of civil service, but people just want to feel like they're in charge, number one. Or number two, what you were saying, they were trying to appeal to certain demographic, certain culture. Or number three is because the central government is a bit weak. We don't have the Mahakwasa like Mahathir. Those say Mahathir really is an emperor, right? If he says something, everyone will fall in line. So do you think is any of these or combination of factors? Because later we want to talk about whether decentralization, diminishing of central power is a good or bad thing.
Actually, I felt like it could be like the third one in terms of the federal. The government is not so. The central government is not so strong anymore. In the sense that
not so dictatorial. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel it's a bit more like a like showing your fist.
So they are not happy. I mean, because you can't control me now, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, I felt it's a bit showy. I mean that's just my sense when I kind of like read through the article and things like that. But I mean I could be utterly wrong in the sense that it could be that, or it could be like just, hey, I mean, like, why are you criticizing me because I'm just doing my job here? So I felt like there was a bit of like those few elements at play here. I don't think it necessarily is like they are trying to be like little Napoleons. I feel it's more like
Nobody is like supervising me.
Yeah, so I felt like it's a bit of that. It's like this is my turf. Don't you dare coming in. But aren't police under the executive branch?
But they have been kind of considered the strongest deep administrative state. I mean, the special branch has a certain reputation, and I think today is one of the I think today or yesterday was the anniversary of when they were dealing with one of the Islamic terrorists many years ago. So I think the IGP was trying to defend Sosma today, and I think he is like kind of taking a veil shot at people like Ram Kapau and Gobing and say, just because you want some human rights, don't jeopardize national security. So the whole discussion, and I think Ram Kapau or Gobing, I can't remember, came back very strongly and criticized the IGP. And the IGP, by the way, used to be the chief of special branch. So yeah, I mean, we talk about police brutality, which is another topic altogether. And I think the Indian community are more aggrieved because when you look at death in custody and all these things, it almost always involves them. But I remember a few years ago, I mean, maybe the more high profile, but when they look at the statistics of death in custody, actually Malay is still the highest. I mean, obviously you're the highest percentage population here. But there just seems to be a lot of lack of accountability all around.
Yeah, I mean, I do think so. I guess it's like, I mean, we're not trying to be like conspiracy theories as well, but I feel there is a bit of, yeah, I mean, except for like the word showing your fist. I mean, I can't really like think of something else, but I mean, I do feel it's a bit more leaning towards that direction, whereby like, hey, I mean, I'm flexing my power here, and I mean, this is what I'm supposed to do. But on the other hand, I felt like it's also a bit like they're trying to distinguish themselves from the central government. I feel maybe there's a bit of that sort of political at play.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing because, I mean, since we're here, we can frame it in this way. It's the weakening of federal power and Prime Minister office specifically a good thing. I mean, we say that a few times already here, a good thing. But in terms of, now recently, of course, I mean, I don't know if you've been reading about Zaid Ibrahim, of course, has been very, very vocal. I mean, when I look at him, he kind of reminds me of Bernie Sanders, And Bernie Sanders basically is like, if he said 10 things, 9 will be totally crap, but he will get one thing right, maybe, in the long run.
Maybe.
So Zaid is a bit like that. Most of the things he said, like he's saying he's supporting PAS and, he wants a Islamic government. I mean, it's like, hello, you are a lawyer for so many years. You should understand that this is not an Islamic country. But of course, that's... I mean, this is an argument which I feel like people like us who believe in civil government, who believe in the Malaysia project, it is something that we will win in long run because of what's happening in Sabah and Sarawak.
Yep.
I just don't think that a PAS-led, Islamic-led, theocratic government is in play because of what's happening in the East Malaysia. So unless you're really talking about splitting of the original partners, if the three remain together, I don't think you can. But of course, democracy is like that. The voters can decide many, many things. But anyway, one of the things he said, which is very interesting, is I think this coming weekend, right? Did you read? I think Dr. M is organizing something. Let me just They call it the Bumi Convention. They're supposed to get all the so-called elite of the Malay. I mean, they call it Bumi lah, but then it's a Sarawak native, Sabah native are excluded. So what kind of Bumi are you talking about? But anyway, they come but I just saw one statement by Zaid Ibrahim, and he was saying that, look, some people are organizing this. I'm not going. Why I'm not going? Because he said, look, those people who try to promote a certain race should really think hard. So I was very interesting because on one hand, this is a guy who say, we should have a theocratic kind of government. But then on the other hand, I think, very, very strange. He was like praising Mahathir for strong leadership and things like that. But at the same time, he is like kind of saying that the Ketuangan Melayu didn't really benefit the country. So I just felt like there's a bit of, for lack of a better word, a bit of contradiction within himself. Talking about Zaid.
Yeah, I mean, I do get that sort of sense, but I also feel like maybe he's trying to separate the race from the religion.
Okay. Very, very interesting. So it's like religion, we can be theocratic, but if you're theocratic, then you kind of upgrade yourself from the race level.
Yeah, because I feel like he's more like he's very much like an activist in a sense like, hey, I mean, like, let's go for a moral high ground and things like that. But I don't necessarily feel like he's actually wanting like a more like a certain race-based, like Bumi-centric government or maybe Chinese-centric government. I don't think it's like towards that sort of direction.
Actually, it's very interesting you talk about activists, because I mean, my own impression of activists all around the world, including, in US and things like that, they are actually, their zeal is more religious. They are really like, they believe in something, like you talk about LGBT or trans activists. It's really like a religion to them.
Yeah, but I think all these things are very much rooted on like a moral high ground in the sense that like, hey, I mean, we should treat everyone equal, but I mean,
more equal than others.
yeah, but there's also a sense of like delusion, as in like sometimes a certain group of people are not necessarily a group of people that are recognized by the law in that sense. So I felt like there's some of these things they need to be like very much aware of what is the cause that they are actually fighting for. But I think generally they are like all for like the advancement of human rights. So in that sense, I do feel there is a bit of separation from the religion from the race.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because race, like at least the way it is, the way it is implemented in Malaysia, it's more like it's more like DEI, it's more like affirmative action, it's more like corruption enabler, it's more like me and my pocket kind of thing. But whereas the activist religious part, it's really a belief system that in that sense it is much more dangerous than those who just want affirmative action so that they can makan more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about like sisters in Islam as well. I mean, they are also very much like advocating like some of the great values of Islam, but they are not necessarily like, hey, I mean, like very supportive of like, let's say UMNO, who use the religion card to basically like create a dent in Islam.
Yeah, it's interesting you use this. I think they have a new name already, right? I
Yeah, I can't remember
because they
the
can't use the word Islam. And I remember the founder was saying that UMNO is much more dangerous than PAS. So I think they are more coming from anti-corruption angle. But of course, if you allow ideologue to have a say in the driver's seat, and this is one of the things we saw with the progressive nut case, right? I mean, don't talk about Malaysia. We look at the West, the woke movement, the trans movement. You know how they are encouraging children as young as 7, 8 to do transition. So, and their belief system is really, this is good for humanity. And then you get all those irreversible damage. So, do you agree that this, I mean, the more misguided ideologues are much more dangerous? And we were seeing that kind of pockets happening in Malaysia, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you have like a very fixed set of belief system, it's actually harder to change your mind. I mean, because it's like it forms your core belief system. So I feel like it's actually I do agree. I mean, it's definitely actually more dangerous.
Interesting. I mean, we kind of have a few questions, but we kind of pivot. So, but I have this one last question I think I want to tackle, because talking about again Zaid, okay, talking about his comment on the Bumi Convention, then he's like, you shouldn't just give preference to one race so that a few people can become billionaire and things like that. So, which kind of reminds me of what PMX said way at the beginning of his Madani government, and he said the government should focus on need-based rather than race-based. This is what he said in year 1. And after 3 years, it looks like he's not focusing on the need. I mean, look at all the things, all the tax policy or the custom policies or the collection policy is just creating a lot of hardship on a lot of people, and he's constant harping on Mahakaya and things like that. So, but I think he hasn't said Mahakaya for a while.
No, he has not. But
So-
but I feel it's a bit like maybe it's a bit difficult to kind of like group, because when B40 is like generally, I mean, it's sad to say, but a lot of Malays are in B40 category. Not saying that other races don't have it. It's just that it so happened that it's the majority race in this country. So generally, they will have more people falling under the category. So I guess it's like no matter what you do, it almost felt like it's more race based rather than need based. So maybe his heart is like really towards helping the poor, but it's like the poor will always be with you, right?
Yeah, and it's like if your solution is socialism, then he should be looking at all the case study around the world that you can alleviate it for a while, but if you don't help people to come out from poverty, then they're going to stay there forever. I mean, we look at I mean not just the Malay in Peninsula, but you look at Sabah and Sarawak, the hardcore poor are really. And that's why the last Sabah election, I mean, I still find it so ironic, that Barisan Nasional is saying that, look, if you vote us, we're going to make sure you have good infrastructure. I mean, I saw you've been saying this for the last 40 years. But at that time, I kind of recall when, I think it was his first budget speech, PMS, and he kind of used and I think we did an episode on his first budget speech, which sounded good, but he didn't follow through. So, but do you feel like maybe now with all the heat that is surrounding him, and with DAP kind of like breathing fire, I mean, I hope DAP starts to have a bit more courage, and I don't know what they can do to regain their voter. They're in a very tough situation, but I guess they have to try, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
So do you? I mean, what do you hope to? I mean, of course, every time we talk about poverty, every time we talk about problems of this country, you get 10 people, you get 11 opinion, right? So, but what would you like to see personally? I mean, in terms of, I mean, we talk about economic hardship and. Yeah, I mean it's not easy because we personally don't experience this kind of hardship, and even my Sarah 100 ringgit, some people complain, but for a lot of people 100 ringgit they're happy for 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, actually, I was kind of like just reminded of one Netflix short series that I was watching. I think it's called Maid or something. I mean, she's a single mother, but I mean it is like you always hear about the food stamp coupons and things like that, but it's like, how does it even apply and things like that? But I just find it interesting because she was like, I mean, the protagonist is actually very industrious. So I do think it's like you kind of like make the system work for a certain group of people. I mean, maybe the single parents, or maybe those that really have like a lot of hardship and difficulty in finding jobs, but the social security system is like so. I mean, the welfare system is actually so incredible in the sense that you do get like people who are genuinely deserving of all this thing to really apply for it, and they kind of like queue you up for certain job hunting and things like that. And you at the end of the day, you kind of have to be like hardworking to make ends meet. So I feel like perhaps that would be like a first step that Malaysian government can actually begin to implement, in the sense that, I mean, yes, I don't think people are very much against you giving out food stamp and things like that, but you kind of need to do it in such a way that is like more, there are genuine ways to verify that they actually do need this sort of support. And I don't think people will mind being taxed, in the sense that, I mean, knowing that some of these costs really goes into helping the hardcore the poor, and you actually give them a chance of like trying to make it work. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like the protagonist in that movie, she actually like really just, she was like trying to get away and going into like college, and so it's like she managed to pick herself up, but really by really working very hard and saving up and get certain scholarship, and she managed to actually kind of like having a shot at life. So I feel like generally the infrastructure that is very much needed in Malaysia, it has to be in place because the policies have to make it like workable for these people. And eventually, maybe when the whole country is like becoming so industrious, you could actually even begin to think about something like so unattainable, like what President Trump is like trying to do, in the sense that maybe we can do away with income tax.
Yeah, I mean, recently, I'm not sure if you have been reading, like they wanted to, because of all the tariff and things like that, some of the farming community is kind of suffering. And so he's using the collection from tariff to go into I think the farming side. And I think there are some self-righteous people, as usual, like kind of manifest. But I totally agree with you there has to be social security. I think we all can agree with that. And that's one of the things, of course, DAP and a lot of progressive are focusing. But I guess the problem here is it's very selective. It's not efficient. And every now and then you get all these people who have their own interpretations, and we go back to the race interpretation. So you want to help people, it has to be based on need and not race, not based on religion. But that's one of the things that is challenging for Malaysia generally to overcome, right?
Yeah, and I definitely don't think that the need should be given to like immigrants. I do feel very, very strongly in the sense that it has to be like your own people first. Then you can begin to think, if you have spillover, then you can help other people, but not definitely when your own people are actually very much suffering.
I think in this sense, Malaysia is not too bad. I don't think the government is spending money on migrants, or legal or illegal. I mean, of course, if you talk about US, it's a totally different story. So in that sense, I think Malaysia is doing okay, but still there's a lot of leakage and things like that. So anyway, these are just challenges. But I guess maybe, I mean, every time we kind of talk about this kind of broader issue, and you just feel like, because everyone has so many needs, right? I mean, even some of the people we know, sometimes they have all personal challenge and things like that. And that can kind of cause people to be like, I couldn't care about what other people are facing. But I just feel like we have to continue to encourage people that no matter what is your personal challenge, there's a corporateness, there's a nation that everyone is kind of responsible. So whatever little things we can do, we should be doing. And I mean, even if we're just talking into air here, right? I mean, but it's like we're kind of channeling some of our hope and some of our desire. And yeah, so it doesn't matter where you are, even if you're just a student, you feel like you have no say, no influence, but you never know, just little things you do, it can become some kind of spark. But yeah, I think in the next few episodes, if we can get some people with different perspective, like business perspective, social security, I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, it's not my personal interest or forte, but I know some people are really, really passionate, how to create some kind of, the word security is very interesting, because it shows that you are able to survive, I think at the minimum we should help people to survive. Then from there, I mean, if people cannot even survive, how can they even think and dream about prospering, right?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think a lot of system is like really very much like a survival of the fittest. I don't think it's like a matter of elimination, because everyone do need like a different sort of help. So I think in that sense, hopefully, I mean, we can pivot more towards like need-based approach in this sense.
I think we definitely can agree that those hardcore, poor hardcore challenges, those in hardcore situations should definitely be given more help. I think that would be one of the way to start, right? So anyway, I think we kind of wanted to cover up the pivoting of Madani, but we kind of ended with social security. But that's all the time we have for today. So do let us know some topic. I mean, we recognize it's not easy to talk about this, but nevertheless, I think people should talk about this, because it will reflect what you really want to see the nation becoming.
Yep.
Okay, so until next time, bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.